Yeah, I just wanted to get it started
Amazing.
today. Think about different ways we can thrive and relax. I'm really excited to get into some body work today. So I will hand it back over to Michelle and she will lead the way for us. So welcome,
Thank
Michelle.
you so much. Yeah, what an awesome way to start the day, Ashley. I really, really appreciate that and appreciate you bringing that kind of energy this morning. I feel everybody's energy that's in this space right now. No joke. And I got to warn you all, I'm kind of pumped today. I was listening to some music before this that just really got me pumping and moving, like as much as a redneck from Nebraska can move. I feel like my moves are kind of like Elaine on Seinfeld, where she's all like herky jerky. So that's kind of how I dance. But still, I was moving, I got the energy flowing, and I was like, oh, I should play some music for these folks this morning. And I thought, maybe they're not a music crowd. I don't know. So give me a thumbs up or thumbs down emoji, or just type out thumbs up or thumbs down if you would like some music maybe tomorrow morning next week in the morning while we're kind of waiting for folks to come on. Oh, yes, there's the reactions. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah,
You
in
can
the
hit the
bottom,
reactions button.
there's a toolbar. There's a reactions, like it's a smiley face with a plus sign. If you click that, there's like a little clap to celebrate and a little thumbs up. But
Although
it's
they
not.
don't give a thumbs down. So if somebody definitely does not want music, like tell me in the chat. But you might get outvoted. That's all I'm saying. But it was just such a great way to get pumped up because the song I was listening to, one of my coaches was playing yesterday, and it got everybody really pumped up on a group call. And it's called Beautiful Life by this group called Now United, who I'd never heard of, and I'm a big music person. But they're kind of like world music, and so it was just a really energetic song. And I was listening to that and some of their other songs this morning, and I'm like, yes, it is a beautiful life. It is a beautiful life, no matter what you are facing, what you are battling against right now. You have a beautiful life, and you are a beautiful soul here meant to experience that beautiful life. And so I got to thinking, I'm like, mindfulness is not, we don't have to be all serious and like, all calm and everything. Mindfulness is meant to increase our joy. So I want to turn up the heat a little bit on the mindfulness and start really extending that invitation to really step into the joy in your life, wherever you can find that. And that's what I love about this chat that Ashley put up this morning, is all of these things are such amazing examples of finding mindful moments in our life and tapping into that joy, because it's such an interesting paradox that mindfulness is about paying attention to every moment. And yet, our beautiful lives are comprised of so many moments, most of which we forget. And so, to be able to really pay attention moment by moment as our life unfolds is how we begin to build those beautiful memories, whether it's a challenge you went through or a joyous moment or something deeply painful or something deeply successful, whatever it is, or all of those moments that go into creating this beautiful life. So my mission, my passion is to light people up, to get them to be able to pay more attention moment by moment, because I want for every single one of you on this call, and I'm looking at your names, I'm looking at your pictures, I want for every single one of you on this call to leave this earth having left all your best stuff out there, all your best stuff for everybody else to pick up the baton and take it on with. And we can only do that when we really are paying attention moment by moment and really experiencing what life has to offer us. So with that, like I said, I got to warn you, I'm a little pumped today. So I don't know what's going to come out. Sometime we'll see what happens. I have a script. We'll see how it goes. And I'm already thinking of changing up the meditation that I was intending to do, because I'm just feeling something else that y'all might appreciate a little better than a body scan. So let me share my screen. Oh, there it is. And Ashley will once again send out the slides for everybody And I'm going to ignore the chat. So Ashley, I will turn that over to you to wrangle all the comments. And as Ashley mentioned, today we're going to do some sort of body work, but it's really the foundation, as I mentioned last week, of mindfulness, which is this coming into the body, which may have been kind of a wonky concept for some of you who maybe haven't experienced mindfulness a lot lately. So we're gonna unpack that concept a little bit more today. But this is really the building block of mindfulness. And I was thinking this morning actually of sort of a visual of, imagine that we're all on a roller coaster together. If you don't like roller coasters, just bear with me. But imagine we're all on a roller coaster together. And last week and this week is sort of the rise up. We're going slow. We're getting up to the top. And then starting next week, we're kind of at the top, and you're going to look down to that big dip and you're going to go, oh, wow. Okay. Now we're rolling. So we're really going to drop in next week. So sit back and kind of like just allow this week to kind of wash over you, knowing that next week we're really going to strap in and go a lot deeper. But we can't go there without this basic foundation of mindfulness of the body. So quick overview of today's practice. Again, we'll do a grounding practice just to allow everybody to kind of set the morning aside, whatever you've experienced so far this morning or this week, and be able to really drop in and focus your attention, your awareness in here for the next hour and a half. And then we'll talk about exactly why and how we practice mindfulness of the body. There are two informal practices. If you remember back to what last week I talked about informal and formal, and the informal is as you're just going about your day. So there are two informal practices that I wanted to pass along. And then the formal practice, which I originally was intending to be mindfulness of the body, and now I'm thinking of doing something different. So before we get to that, maybe I'll throw it up in the chat for you guys to vote on which meditation you might want to do, because the journal that I prepared for this week has some guided body scans for mindfulness of the body. So I'm like, why do that today? Why not do something a little more fun? And then we'll have our question and answer period at the end. So before we move on to the grounding practice, I actually just wanted to circle back real quick and ask a couple of questions. First of all, I'd be curious if throw up in the chat, who was able to do every journal meditation since last week? I would have to stop. Ashley, I'll give you, there it is. I can see it now. So if you just want to post in the chat, if you were able to do every single meditation that was in the journal from last week, I'm just kind of curious how that practice went for folks. And it's totally okay if you didn't do every meditation. If you did one meditation, awesome. Truly, truly awesome. And even if you didn't get a chance to do one meditation and you showed up today and you showed up last week, that's okay too. Because sometimes we just take baby steps. And so if you didn't get a chance to do any of the meditations, no judgment at all. They're there for you if and when you ever want to come back to them. Seeing people downloaded the app today, did 2, did 1. So somebody missed the session last week. So what app? So yeah, I don't think I put this in the journal. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
I sent it out in the email.
Okay.
So
good. Okay.
So I can resend that again, Tracy, but it was in the email I sent with the recording of the first session last week. It has access to the app and the journal pieces. But if you needed to get it.
It's called Insight Timer. And I see some comments, 0, sadly. Again, just 0. No sadly about it. That's okay. That's where you were over the last 7 days. So that is perfectly okay. Remember the 2 wings of mindfulness, the awareness, and then compassion, the non-judgment. So nix the sadly, just 0. That's okay. Okay, that's good feedback. I appreciate that. And 4, somebody did 4, great. My other question is, I just wanted to see if there were any lingering questions from last week that folks want to address before we move on a little bit deeper this week. So if there's anything you don't understand or that you really struggled with, pop it in the chat, or you can ask to come on video too if that's easier, just to kind of make sure we're all starting from the same place today, so I don't want anybody feeling kind of left behind. So I'll give you a few moments if anybody has anything. Oh, great, Tracy, you found it. Great. And somebody also posted that they didn't have a chance to do any of the meditations, but tried to stop and focus on breathing several times. That's awesome. And that's that informal piece of it. Very powerful. Very, very powerful. Oh, somebody's, I think Dixon's 3 is asking, how many times do I meditate? Is that the question? Per day? Is that the question also? I will answer that. And if you have a different question, let me know. But I meditate almost every day. Again, I'm human. I'm not perfect. There are days that I miss. And on the days that I miss, I try to make sure that I'm paying more attention informally throughout my day and kind of practicing little moments of mindfulness in extra amounts, so to speak. But I pretty much practice every day, and usually at least for 20 minutes. Sometimes it's a little more, a little less. And then sometimes I meditate again before bed just to kind of calm my head down a little bit. And I've been meditating for, what is this? Oh, wow, for almost 8 years. Yeah, yeah. Another question, are we supposed to just focus on breathing, or can we still engage in our thoughts? Oh, beautiful question, Barbara. Thank you for that. And the answer is yes and yes. So the mindfulness of the anchor that we talked about last week, the mindfulness of the breath and that focusing on the breath, that's what really allows us to come in to that present moment. Because when we're anchored into the breath and focusing on the breath, each breath, and then noticing the space within each breath and noticing the fullness of each breath. There's so many different ways that you can really peel back the layers and go deeper with the breath itself. When we're really tapped into that, that's when we're in just that present moment. You just are. You just are here. And as we'll talk about a little bit next week too, right? Next in the thoughts one, whenever that is, in the thoughts course. If there are thoughts that are really pulling at your attention, couple of things. First, just again, I guess we didn't talk about this last week, so a little preview for upcoming course. But when a thought pulls you away, just noticing it, and we did talk about this last week, notice it and guide the awareness back to the breath without judgment. And if there's something that is just really kind of gnawing at you, sometimes it's okay to really focus on that. And just kind of notice what's coming up for you. Like, what is that thought creating in the body? How is that thought bringing up feelings of nervousness or anxiety or happiness or joy or whatever it might be? And instead of maybe trying to problem solve, just noticing the thought and just keeping your attention and focus on the thought. So, and that's sometimes what our presence kind of wants us to do, and that's okay. So if you can just work with kind of how long can you sort of keep the thought out there and come back to the breath. And if it really wants your attention, it's okay to kind of pull that in and say, okay, I'm just going to focus on you, and I'm going to focus on whatever's coming up for me with this thought. Meditate every day, not following the journal as I had things that were totally understandable, completely understandable. That's awesome that you're paying attention to your response to life as it was happening. Beautiful. So the question, the clarification was, how many times should you, the audience, meditate, and for how many minutes? There is no rule about that. This is make it your own. So if you want to meditate once a week, once a year, make it your own. If you want to meditate 5 times a day for a minute each or 5 minutes each, the invitation that I extend to everybody is to find a practice for you that you want to do. With mindfulness, we're not talking about forcing you to do anything. That's aversion. And we work with aversion and mindfulness, not necessarily a little bit in this course, but there are other teachings that go a little more in depth. But mindfulness is not there to be something that you're like, oh, I gotta sit down and meditate. I gotta carve out 20 minutes to meditate. First of all, if that's the reaction you're having to meditation or to mindfulness, stop and be aware of that. And maybe get curious with that. What's that telling you about yourself, about how you feel about mindfulness, about the time of day you have set aside to practice mindfulness, the minutes you have set aside to practice it? It's a practice like anything that the more we do it, the more, again, we train that mindfulness muscle. So we will keep it, we'll want to keep coming back to it. But if you're fairly new to mindfulness, it may not be floating your boat right off the bat. Totally okay. And that's when I really plant the seed to just start small, so that you get encouraged to maybe take another bigger step tomorrow. So start as small as you need to start, so that it feels welcoming and inviting for you, so that you're encouraged to continue the practice and not be turned off from it. Another question: I lose the anchor after about a minute, but I try again and again and again. Awesome. And if you can keep on that anchor for a minute, you are well on your way. We'll talk about this in the thoughts class, so I'm not going to give this away, but as I mentioned, our mind is designed to think. And so it's constantly running in the background. And so if you're able to focus on your breath for a minute, that's really amazing. And if you're able to focus on it for 5 seconds, that's also amazing, because each second, each moment, again, is a moment that you've spent then in the present, as opposed to getting pulled away from the thoughts. Okay, awesome questions. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for the feedback on the journal. And again, no pressure or judgment about the journal. It's just there for you if and when you want it. And you want to keep them, and 5 years from now, you're like, oh, I can't remember that journal. Maybe I'd do a meditation for that. Completely understandable. Okay, so with all of that, let me bring us in here a little bit and do a little bit of grounding practice. Doesn't mean they're going to go away. We're just going to focus the energy in a little bit more. So go ahead and get in a comfortable position wherever you are today, comfortable, but yet with some alertness, not too rigid. Maybe you're sitting or lying down or even standing, whatever you feel is calling you today. And we'll do a short little grounding practice. Allowing yourself to drop in today, drop into your posture, drop into the room where you are, drop into the space that we're all sharing here today. And as you're settling in, bringing the awareness to your feet, and if they're planted on the floor, noticing the connection between the feet and the floor. And if you're cross-legged or lying down, noticing whatever connection points you have between the body and the surface that you're on. Allowing this connection to draw you down and draw you in. Closing down your eyes if that's comfortable for you, or just casting your gaze downward. Allowing yourself to really come into the present moment, into yourself, into whatever is here for you today. Noticing how the breath is today. Is it slow or fast? Deep or shallow? congested or easeful. Just noticing how the breath is showing up for you today. And let's take some long, deep inhales and exhales together. Beginning by inhaling through the nose, noticing the air passing the tip of the nose, and all the way down into the chest and abdomen. And on an exhale, letting the air out slowly through the mouth, gently inviting the body to relax and settle in a bit. And another inhale through the nose, a slightly deeper breath if you can. Imagining this breath extending down further into the bottom, all the way down through the toes. And exhaling through the mouth, again gently and slowly, maybe letting out a slight sigh, releasing any tension that may want to go. And one last breath, your deepest breath yet today. Inhaling through the nose, imagining the breath extending all the way down through the body, out through the bottom of the feet, connecting you to the surface you're on. And exhaling through the mouth with a sigh. Just letting go, and allowing the breath to return to normal. Just keeping the awareness resting gently on the breath, wherever you can notice the breath the most, whether it's the tip of the nose or back of the throat, the rise and fall of the chest or abdomen. Establishing your anchor. And taking a few short moments this morning to briefly scan through the body, starting with the top of the head all the way down through the feet. Just guiding the awareness gently down from the top of the head all the way down, noticing any areas of tension or holding or discomfort, and just noticing. Inviting those areas to relax if they can. Inviting the breath to those areas to maybe create some spaciousness. And whatever happens, continuing to move the awareness down through the body, all the way down through the toes, as if the awareness is bringing you down, settling you in, connecting you more deeply to the surface that you're on. Guiding the awareness down, all the way down through the calves and shins and ankles, the tops of the feet, the bottom of the feet, all the way to the tips of the toes. And then letting that body scan go and resting for a few moments back on the breath. Feeling as much as you can completely supported, connected, and present. And remembering that when you get distracted, that's okay. Becoming aware of it and without judgment, returning the awareness back to the breath. When you're ready, you can gently start to blink your eyes open, noticing the light coming into the room, the sounds, the temperatures where you are. And noticing that grounding is still with you. So as we did last week, we have a couple of poll questions that we'd love your feedback on. And I think Ashley will throw those up. The first one is, on a scale of 1 to 5, how aware are you of your body? Whatever that means to you. Just how aware are you of your body?
It says 1 to 10. I forgot to change that to 1 to 5. Just a heads
Oh,
up.
that's okay.
No, those of you who did not authenticate or sign into this may not be able to see the poll. So if you don't see the poll, still feel free to throw that into the chat. Give it a few minutes here.
Yeah, and thank you for those who are posting that in the chat. And I should have also said, with on the scale of 1 to 5, or if you're doing 1 to 10, that's great too. With 1 being not aware at all, and 5 or 10, whichever you're using, like aware all the time of your body. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for those responses. All right, so the results. Most people, 48%, I am intentionally aware of my body at times. Close behind that, I am aware enough to know when it hurts. Yeah, makes sense. And then actually third behind that, 12%, I feel deeply connected to and aware of my body at all times. It's amazing, amazing awareness. Yeah. Okay. And the second question is, and we've seen some of this in the responses this morning, what was your biggest challenge in your mindfulness practice last week? Go ahead and type that in the chat. Right? We don't have a specific poll for that, right? Do we, Ashley?
No, I wanted to leave that open
Okay.
response.
Yeah. So go ahead and type in the chat what your biggest challenge was. Getting caught up in thoughts, totally common and normal. Yeah. Making time, yes. Setting intentions when I arrived at my practice. Prioritizing time for me over work, dedicating time. Oh, the coming in, the challenges are coming in. A lot of making time, yes. And remembering to do it. Anxiety, yes, we'll work with that a bit in the emotions. Work and life distractions, prioritizing me, not quieting my thoughts, losing the follow through by distractions, totally normal. Yeah, shut out the internal distractions and noise, or shut out the external distractions, sorry. Definitely time and chaotic thoughts, not having a space to myself, fitting it in, time. So yeah, I'm seeing my rough math here is that the predominant challenge seems to be making time, fitting it in, followed maybe a close second by thoughts and other distractions. And yeah, I think that sums up a lot of the response. Can't quiet my thoughts, too much going on. So let me address those. Tired and stressed. Oh yes. So the first one, the making time or being too busy, etc. That is such a common reaction, and I think a very common hurdle for people who are trying to incorporate mindfulness into their life. And a couple of, or a thought and maybe a reframe on that for those who are trying to make the time. The first thought goes back to what we talked about this week and sort of hit on again this morning, which is that mindfulness is both the formal and the informal practice, and that it really is a way of life, which I think makes it different from a lot of habits, so to speak, that we try to incorporate into our life. So while the practice certainly can become a habit, mindfulness itself is a way of life. And I guess I would equate it to a dietary choice or restriction that anyone may have. It just kind of becomes your way of life, and it may take some effort in the beginning. There may be a learning curve. There may be times when it's super inconvenient. I'll give you an example. I'm plant-based, and so there are times when it's super inconvenient. And it was definitely a learning curve. And yet I've been doing it for 12 years now, and it's just a way of life. And so it just is incorporating it so that it kind of is in your pores, so to speak. So when it comes to mindfulness, remembering, first of all, that it's available to you 24/7, 24/7 as you're going about your day. And we'll actually go through a couple techniques today that may help a little bit with that making time piece of it. So any time in your day that you can pause for 30 seconds, that's a practice of mindfulness. Even if you are pausing in the grocery store line, in the gas line, on a conference call, whatever it might be, just that intentional pause and kind of just stopping and taking 3 or 4 or 5 breaths and focusing on the breath. That is a formal mindfulness practice. And then going throughout your day, if you're washing the dishes or while you're on the conference call, just kind of noticing, where's my mind going? What am I feeling? Am I annoyed? Just, again, dropping into the moment. So those are the I guess, more than one thought. The reframe I would like to offer up on that kind of follows along with all of that is, what's another way that you could look at it instead of making time or finding time? So what would be most supportive and helpful to you? Because what I pick up on underneath that notion of I need to make time, I need to find time, is force. That we're trying to force something else into our busy schedules. And so I love this finding my why. Yes, so powerful. So powerful. If you can tap into, for example, how do you feel after you've taken 5 deep inhales and exhales? How do you feel? Maybe you don't feel any different than before you did, which is totally fine. Maybe you feel slightly more relaxed, a lot more relaxed. If that's the case, then that can start to be your why. That mindfulness starts to be something that, again, is just part of your day. Like brushing your teeth, taking a shower, although some of us aren't showering all that much lately, but brushing your teeth, we still do that every day. Eating, whatever it might be, so that, think about it that way. Do you think about eating or sleeping or taking care of your family or brushing your teeth or going to the bathroom? Do you think about making time for that? I mean, granted, sometimes it's hard to juggle all of it. And yet those are the things that are just part of our days, are part of our ways of life. And so everything that we're trying to force in there, that we're trying to make time for, it can, that creates additional challenge for us. So finding a way that, again, it invites you to want to have this as part of your daily routine, your daily life. And so even if that's just for 30 seconds, 30 seconds. I mean, y'all have 30 seconds, I think. I'm pretty sure. 30 seconds to just drop in, take 5 deep breaths. Boom. That might be your formal meditation practice for the day. So just offering up that reframe on making time or finding time. And on the thoughts, the distractions, we'll talk about this much more in the thought distraction, but I just want to assure you for right now, totally normal. You're right where you're supposed to be. Yes, your thoughts, your itches, your pains, your children, the dogs barking next door, there's going to be a ton of distractions. And the moment of victory, and I'll say this time and time again, is when you notice you're distracted and you bring your awareness back to the breath. That's a moment of mindfulness. Like break out the pom-poms for that. That's a moment of mindfulness. Okay. So yeah, that was awesome feedback. Appreciate that so much.
Wanted to
Most
share
definitely.
with you that
But
we've all decided we want a group text from you every day to remind us to do our mindfulness meditations.
I can totally, and I got to say, my first response was going to be a cuss word. Yeah. Like, you know me, Ashley. So I'll just, heck yeah. Not the word I was going to use. Heck yeah. I could send you all a group text to say, ding, ding, ding. Time to be mindful. But I love that. Honestly, I love that question because finding it's like an accountability partner. Finding something that will invite you, encourage you, remind you to practice mindfulness every day. And if that's a text message from me, by all means, let me know. I am happy to send you a text message every day and just say, hey, did you find some mindfulness today? I'm more than happy to do that. So reach out to me. Oh, I love this. Somebody said the Calm app has reminders. Yes, the Calm app is another. There's so many meditation apps. You can just set a reminder on your phone, an alarm for every day at 3 o'clock or every morning at 7 or whatever. But if you need a live, warm human being reminder, I'm happy to do that for you all. So, okay, turning off the chat again. So there's a poem I want to share that I've only put part of it here, but I want to actually read the whole thing to you. I just love it. I love me some good poems. Oh, where did I put it? Here it is. Because this one in particular really extends that invitation to connect more deeply and to drop into the body. And it's by Dana or Dana. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. And I actually don't know what the title is. I don't know if she has a title for it. But it says, trust the energy that courses through you. Trust, then take surrender even deeper. Be the energy. Don't push anything away. Follow each sensation back to its source in vastness and pure presence. Be unafraid of consummate wonder. Emerge so new, so vulnerable, that you don't know who you are. Be the energy and paradoxically be at peace. Dare to be your own illumination and blaze a trail across the clear night sky. So the part I love the most is the part I didn't actually put on here, but that dare to be your own illumination and blaze a trail across the sky. Let that just kind of sink in for a moment. Because that connecting to that energy within us, we're all energy. That's science. We're flesh and bone and blood and tendons and muscles and cells and atoms and subatomic particles. It's all energy. So coming into that energy, connecting with the body, trusting what's there for you, the energy that's flowing through you. And by not pushing anything away, and we'll get into this much deeper in the emotions session, by not pushing anything away, that's how we are opening up to the full experience of being human and to the present moment. And just let that sink in a little bit, let that wash over you. And I'm curious what your reaction might be to that. When we talk about mindfulness of the body, and I say this, coming into the body, dropping into the body, we are not talking about transcending the body. There are some meditations that do that, and those are great. Again, remember mindfulness is a type of meditation. But contrary to some meditations, like maybe mantras or something like that, which I've used mantras too, I love mantras. Those kind of take you out, take you to another place. Mindfulness is about coming in. We're really going in. So we're waking up in the body. We are extending ourselves the invitation to sort of make this, my meditation teacher, Tara Brach, calls it like make this U-turn. We're usually out here, going out here. Come back home. One of my other meditation teachers I've had a chance to work with, her name's Sebene Selassie. I was reading a blog post of hers the other day, and I wish I had the quote in front of me, but she was saying something about, we talk about coming home to the body, coming into the body as a remembering, because in life we are dismembered. We have dismembered ourselves, we've dismembered our mind, body, soul. We've kind of compartmentalized them. And mindfulness is about bringing all of that back in together and remembering who we are by coming into the body. And it helps us remember and or be aware of, recognize what our bodies are saying to us. Because all of these emotions and physical symptoms, all of these little niggles that we have, and the aches and pains and the anxiety and the frustration and the anger and the happiness and joy, all of them are intelligent sensations in the body. They're telling us something. And it could be a variety of things. That something could be adjust your posture, get the rock out of your shoe, go to the doctor, sleep more, eat better. Like, so many things that our body could be telling us on an emotional and physical level if we just tune in. This quote by Jack Kornfield, one of my meditation teachers: mindfulness of the body allows us to live fully. It brings us healing, wisdom, and freedom. And that kind of goes back to what I said at the beginning, is that we want to live our lives from that place of fullness, where we're not pushing anything away or grasping at other things. We tend to want to, we'll talk about this too in the emotions, tend to want to push away the bad, grasp and hang on to the good. And that takes energy. And so when we can allow for all of it and remember to come into the body, then we're living fully for the whole experience. And that brings us this great wisdom and great freedom, so that, again, we can leave this earth having put all our best stuff out there while we were here. So why is it so gall-dang difficult to stay present in the body then? Well, probably 50 million reasons nowadays, but I'm going to focus on a couple. We have this universal conditioning to exit. And there's some science behind that I won't get into today. We'll get into that in a couple of sessions. I keep feeling like I'm like, we'll talk about that later. Trust me, we will talk about a lot of things later. But we have this universal, as I mentioned, conditioning to exit when something is pleasant. Again, we want to hang on to it, or we're worried that it won't last. Like, oh, I just started dating this awesome person. I feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, we love it, and yet we're worried it's not going to last. Or unpleasant. We just want to get rid of the crap, get that bad stuff, the hard stuff, the aches, the pains, all of it. Let's get rid of it. And so I'm going to try and run away from it. And so what we do is we end up taking refuge in what we love to call the mental control tower. We're up here, again, in the heads, but we've dismembered the head from the body almost. Sorry, that's gross visual aid, but it is sort of a dismembering, where we try from up here to control everything. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you don't have control over diddly, really, except your reaction. That is the one thing you have control over. Your reaction to the situations that you find yourself in and that present themselves to you. And yet, we try to control our colleagues, our kids, the TV, the social media. We want to control everything. Time, and technology and distractions actually make this worse, because we get, first of all, pulled out of the present moment, surfing Facebook, Instagram, whatever else, email, the internet, all the news sources, television programs, talking head pundits, reality TV, all of which can be good escapes and sometimes needed to sort of allow ourselves to check out. Yet we do it consistently nowadays, because it's too much. We don't want to be present with what is. And so when we're taking refuge in that mental control tower, or when we're checking out with technologies and distractions, we are pulling ourselves out of the present moment, out of our body, and we're creating that disconnect. And there are really extreme consequences from this. I mentioned my mom in the first last week, and how she passed away of a heart attack at the age of 58. I thought my mom was going to outlive all of us. And I'm sure she's like trying to find a way to get back, because she just wasn't done. She had so much else to do, so much more potential, so many more dreams that she hadn't fulfilled, that she'd kind of put up on a shelf because she became a really young mom. She had me when she was 18, and she just then worked and worked and worked. And she had dreamed of becoming a nurse, but can't become a nurse because I got to take care of my kids and family, and sacrificed everything for the family, for her husband, and really sacrificed herself. And eventually my parents got divorced, and she started living more for herself and finding her true happiness, finding somebody who gave to her as much as she gave to them. And yet still never came home to herself, because she was always giving more, and her tank finally ran out. Because the consequences of that was she was fatigued, she had anxiety and depression, she had unhealthy escape mechanisms, she wasn't eating well, she wasn't taking care of herself, she was overweight, and she had inappropriate reactivity. So any of this ringing a bell for anyone? Any of this sound familiar? Anybody just feel so freaking tired? Just to feel all the anxiety, all the depression, especially nowadays. There's so much with COVID, with the racial awakening that we're being called to, with kids going back to school, with trying to work from home, elections coming up. So of course, we're gonna have a few more drinks at night. We're gonna spend extra time surfing social media. We're gonna watch, God forbid, Tiger King. Ashley, I know you watch that show. I cannot bring myself to watch that show. We're gonna watch like all the Netflix. And we're gonna have inappropriate responses. We're gonna be short-tempered. We're gonna yell at our kids, bite the heads off of our loved ones, flip people off in traffic. All because we haven't taken the 30 seconds or more, if we have it, to come into the body and say, what's going on for me right now? What is it that is wanting to pull me away from this precious, precious present moment? With everything going on, all of the violence, all of the sickness, all of the world events, I still have this precious moment. And so what is so important that it's pulling me out of it, so that I'm not able to show up as my best self, to show up so that I can serve and address all of these things that are confronting all of us. Because when you're fatigued and you have anxiety and depression and you have these unhealthy escape mechanisms and inappropriate activity, guess what? You're not showing up as your best self, the best person who could serve other people in a way that you are also still refilling your tank, not serving so that you're running on an empty tank, but truly serving from a place of it fills you and it fills other people around you. So these are the real world consequences that we find ourselves in society right now, and have for a long time, because we are unwilling to be in the present moment. And as I have here in the slide, when we ignore the body, it makes itself known. We get sick, we get anxious and depressed. So this is real stuff. So how do we come back? What's the good news? How do we come back? That was all kind of heavy. We connect to that anchor, as I mentioned before, even just for 30 seconds, just tapping into the breath, creating that pause, And so maybe we can have a different reaction. We can start to show up a little bit differently. The other way, which is an awesome way for beginners, we'll talk about in just a moment, is the body scan. And during that body scan, we engage in this really curious inquiry about different sensations in the body. And so I guess maybe it's in another slide, the next one down. I'll table that and we'll talk about the body scan in a second. But just really getting curious, even if you're not doing a body scan, anytime you notice something, like honestly right now, getting a hot flash. At that age, hot flashes, awesome opportunity to work with mindfulness. I'm like, okay, I noticed the heat coming up the back, up the neck, and then here comes the sweat and whew, like notice those hot flashes coming up. So what can you notice about your body? And this goes back to the poll question. How aware are you of your body? Can you become aware of the fact that maybe your toes are always a little bit cold, or the tips of your fingers are always a little bit cold? Maybe your one hip is always a little bit tighter than the other one. Maybe you always have this god-awful ache in your back. And noticing then how that differs from other places in the body. Your back may be aching and killing you, but how does your earlobe feel? How does your forehead feel? So really starting to tap into what are the different sensations in my body, different parts of the body where these are showing up. So this is the really awesome piece for those of you who are trying to, again, make time, find time. The time is there. It's just maybe you weren't aware of some tools that you could use. So here you go. These are 2 informal practices that I really love, that are so easy to incorporate, and that may take a little while before you remember them. But the first one is this 2 feet, 1 breath. And you can do this right now. You can do this on a conference call, while you're standing in line at the grocery store, even if you're sitting in the car. Might be a little harder to do, but you're standing here. All you do is pick up one foot, plant it on the ground, pick up the other foot, plant it on the ground, take a deep breath. That's all there is to it. That, again, is a moment of mindfulness because you're bringing your awareness into the body. You're noticing, picking up my foot, planting it down. Picking up my foot, planting it down. Taking a breath. So super short, super easy little practice that you can do anywhere, anytime during your day. And just think, if you started doing that even once a day, that's going to start building that muscle. And trust me, when you start building that muscle, it's going to want to carry more load. In other words, you start doing that once a day, you're starting, I feel like doing that twice a day now. That's weird. Now I kind of feel like doing it 3 times a day. Now I'm doing it all day. It might be a little extreme, but super easy practice. The next one is 3 Ps. Pause, be present, and proceed. This one I love because you can sort of train yourself to do this as you're walking from one room to a next. So it's almost like we're doing a little Pavlov's conditioning here. If you see a door jam that you're passing through, if you pick up your phone for any reason, to surf the internet, to make a call, if you log onto your computer to check an email, send an email, find some trigger, some mechanism that will make you aware, and then do this. Just pause, be present, notice what's coming up for you, and then proceed. Walk through the door, pick up the phone, whatever. Just go about your day. But again, you're creating that moment of mindfulness in that short practice. I just noticed the time, 11 o'clock. So the body scan, the formal technique I talked about, this is really great for beginners because it's what we call a journey through the body. And there are some body scan meditations that I put in the journal that you'll be getting. There's some links for those in there. By the way, in that PDF journal, you can click directly on the link and it will take you usually to an insight timer meditation. But it's a great way to just really get familiar with different physical sensations all throughout the body, and to practice just letting them go. So you start either at the toes or top of the head, everybody does it differently, and going down, and maybe you notice, oh, my jaw's really tight. Can I invite the breath in to maybe allow some spaciousness? And if not, that's okay. Let's move on to the neck. So you practice just letting go, moving past whatever sensation there might be, all the way down through the body. So I really encourage those guided body scans that are in the journal. There are some tips. If you want to even practice a guided body scan as you're going to bed every night, is a great way to do it. Just starting with the head and kind of just scanning the awareness down, noticing what you notice. But with the posture for a body scan, you're usually lying down. And if it helps give support to your lower back, you can put a pillow under your knees or do the astronaut position I talked about last week, where your legs are up on the seat of a chair. So your legs are at like 90-degree angles. That helps support your back. And again, what you pay attention to is just whatever sensations are there. There's no need to try and create a sensation. There are some meditations that do that. You don't have to tense up. Just notice what's there. And if you do come across pain, we don't specifically talk about pain. I mentioned it in response to a question last week, but if you come across pain, just being aware of it and extending yourself and the pain some compassion, saying, I feel you, I see you, it's okay, or I'm here, something, just extending yourself some compassion, and then move on to the next area in the body. And if you're not doing this, as a way to kind of get yourself to go to sleep, if you're doing it in the morning or throughout the day to avoid sleepiness, you can, as you're pretending the floor is at my back here, you can lay with your arms at 90-degree angles, and then so that the back of your arm is on the floor. So if you start to fall asleep, your hand just kind of taps you in the face and wakes you up. So for those who are still on, and I want to be mindful of our time, even though I know we're going a little bit over. I want to put it up for a quick vote. We can either practice a guided body scan, or I have a mountain meditation that brings this visual of a mountain and allows us to kind of ground into this foundation of a mountain. That is a good visual that you can use throughout your day. So put it in the chat, body scan or mountain, which would you all rather do? Do we have it? Oh, we started at 10. Oh, oof. That's right, I about choked on my coffee. We do have till 11:30. I can calm down. I got so excited, choked on my coffee. I was like, where did the time go? I was really in the flow. Okay, so I'm seeing, I'm gonna mute you for just a second. Seeing a lot of mountains, mountain. One body scan, two body scans. I think the body scans are getting outvoted. Body scan. More body scans. What's that, Ashley?
Is there a way to potentially start with like a little body scan and lead into the mountain meditation so we get both?
Yeah, it kind of does. I mean, I can improv. Yeah, we can do that for sure. We can ground into the mountain and kind of do a body scan for sure. Yeah, let's combine it. I love it. Let's combine them both. Provided I don't choke myself to death here. Let me get a drink of water. So take a few moments. I personally, since we're combining this a little bit, I'll leave it up to you all, but I sometimes find it helpful to stand for the mountain meditation. You can also be sitting, totally fine, and lie down. So any of those three, whatever you want to play with a little bit today. The body scan will work with any of those positions. So take a few moments while I get some water and get ready here, and then we'll start in just about a minute or so. Okay, so hopefully you've all found a position that you want to work with a little bit today, and we'll get started. Coming into your posture, allowing yourself to arrive and settle in, making any adjustments you might need to make, closing down those beautiful eyes or just casting your gaze down, and bringing the awareness to your breath. Again, noticing the breath, however it is. There's no need to control it. And let's take a long, deep inhale and exhale together. Inhaling through the nose, noticing the air passing the tip of the nose, expanding the chest and the abdomen, pausing for just a moment, holding that breath, and then exhaling through the mouth with a big sigh, allowing and inviting the body to drop in, arrive, and letting the breath return to normal. Noticing where you can sense the breath the most, whether that's the tip of the nose or the back of the throat, the rise and fall of the chest or abdomen. Establishing the anchor that you can return to at any time. Bringing to mind now the most beautiful mountain you've ever seen. Whether it's a mountain you've been to in person, climbed, or just seen on a photograph or on television. Maybe it's a mountain in a range of mountains, or it stands all by itself, or it could even be an island, a mountain in the middle of the ocean. Bringing to mind this mountain, which this will be your mountain. And imagining yourself floating above and around this mountain. Noticing every detail that you can about this mountain. Is it grassy or rocky? Does it have trees partway up or all the way on top? Is it surrounded by other mountains or just prairie or flatland or ocean? Does it have snow on top or boulders? Imagining every detail that you can about this mountain. And imagining yourself slowly and gently starting to drift down toward the mountain. So it's becoming closer and closer. You can see the details in the ground below you. So you float and settle down softly on the top of your mountain. And you can be standing or sitting or lying down on your mountain. But you are the only one on your mountain. It's all yours. And starting to sense into the connection between you and the mountain. Wherever the body is touching your mountain. Bringing the awareness to these touch points with the mountain. Sensing the body connecting and settling into the top of your mountain. Connecting deeper and deeper. Noticing that the temperature, the air, everything is perfect for you on your mountain. You're completely safe. Noticing if you hear any sounds, any birds, the wind, or maybe it's completely quiet. The temperature is just right for you, whatever that may be. And from the top of this mountain, you can see as far as your eye can see, all around you, 360 degrees. Returning your awareness back to the connection with the mountain. And whatever your posture is on the mountain, guiding your awareness to your feet. However the feet may be resting on the mountain. Feeling the connection between the feet and the mountain. Trusting that this mountain is supporting you fully. This connection between you and the mountain is unbroken. It's almost as if you and the mountain are one. There's no space between you and the mountain. And starting with the feet, beginning to imagine that you can draw the energy, the power, the foundation of this mountain up through the feet, maintaining that connection, that foundation. And guiding the awareness into the very tips of the toes. Noticing how the toes feel from the inside out. Is there tingling, warmth, coolness, or nothingness? Seeing if you can sense the aliveness, the energy in the toes. Guiding the awareness now up through the feet, the soles of the feet and the tops of the feet. What sensations do you notice here? From the inside out, all the way on the inside, what do you feel in your feet? All the way to the skin on your feet. What do you notice about how the air feels on your feet? Or maybe your sock or shoe on your feet. Guiding the awareness now up through the ankles and the heels. What do you notice here? If you're standing, do you notice pressure on the heels and ankles? Or if you're sitting or lying down, what else can you notice in the heels and ankles? And if there's nothing, that's okay. Just spaciousness, emptiness. Drawing the awareness up and remembering to draw that foundation of the mountain with you. Energy from that mountain drawing up into the bottom of the feet, up into the shins and calves. What sensation do you notice here? Any tightness, numbness, heat or cold, or even just a vibration? What are you noticing in the calves and the shins? Guiding the awareness, the foundation of that mountain up through the knees, all the way around the knees. What are you noticing? What sensations are present for you in the knees? Just noticing. And anywhere that there might be discomfort, recognizing the discomfort, extending yourself some compassion for the discomfort, saying, I see you, I feel you. It's okay. And inviting the awareness of the breath to the knees if you need to find some spaciousness or openness in any discomfort in the knees. Inviting the breath in to expand. Guiding the awareness now up through the tops of the legs, the thighs, the hamstrings. Remembering to bring that foundation of the mountain with you. What do you notice in your thighs and hamstrings? What sensations are present for you? And whatever you notice, seeing if you can allow it to be there, or inviting the breath in to allow some spaciousness. Guiding the awareness up further into the glutes, the pelvis, and the hips. Bringing the foundation of the mountain up into these areas, remembering that connection, and seeing what you can notice in the glutes, the hips, and the pelvis, the hip flexors. Is there any tightness, any discomfort, or openness? And allowing whatever is there to be there. Noticing it. And guiding the awareness on up to the lower back, the abdomen. Remembering to bring that foundation of the mountain all the way up. What are you noticing from the inside out, in the abdomen and the lower back, in your sides? Is there an openness or expansiveness? Maybe a feeling of hunger or sounds of hunger. Is there a tightness or ease in the lower back? What are you noticing? Drawing up the foundation of that mountain and guiding the awareness to the rib cage, to the upper torso, to the chest, the back, in between the shoulder blades. What are you noticing about the upper torso? Are you noticing an openness or expansiveness? Or is there constriction, tightness? Inviting the breath into the rib cage and the chest and the back to allow some spaciousness and expansiveness. And then just resting the awareness on this area to see what you notice. And drawing the foundation of the mountain up even further, guiding the awareness to the shoulders, down both arms, the biceps and the triceps, the elbows, the forearms, the wrists, the palms of the hand, the outer parts of the hand, the fingers all the way down to the fingertips. What sensations are you noticing all the way from the shoulders down to the tips of your fingers? What do your arms feel like from the inside out? Is there any tingling, discomfort, warmth, or coolness? Where can you sense the aliveness from the shoulders all the way down to the fingertips? Guiding the awareness and drawing up the foundation of the mountain even further into the neck, clavicle, right up underneath the chin, to the throat. What do you sense in your clavicle area, your neck, your throat? Noticing what this area feels like from the inside out. Noticing the breath passing along the back of the throat. Guiding the awareness up and remembering the foundation of that mountain into the chin, around the base of the skull, up to your ears, around your mouth and lips, to the tongue inside your mouth. What are you noticing in the lower part of your head? Is there a clenching or tightness in the jaw that might want to soften or release just a little bit? And inviting the breath into this area to create some expansion and spaciousness. Relaxing the tongue in the mouth, and maybe gently allowing the tongue to rest along the back of the front teeth. Maybe allowing the lips to part just a little bit, inviting some releasing in the jaw and the mouth. Guiding the awareness and drawing up the foundation of that mountain, up through the cheeks, your nose, around the back part of the head, up through the eyes, eyebrows, the forehead, wrapping all the way around the head, out through the very top of the head. What are you noticing in this top half of the head? Noticing any sounds the nose might make as it breathes. Noticing, is there any tension around the ears, around the skull? What does your skull feel like? Can you notice even the hair on your head? Is there any tension in the brow or the eyes that might want to soften and release a bit on the breath? Imagining the foundation of the mountain now that runs all the way through you, from your feet all the way through to the top of the head. And this foundation expanding all around you, expanding the awareness all around you, noticing how the entire body feels from the inside out. Constellation of sensations from the toes all the way to the top of the head. As you expand this awareness out, remembering that connection between you and the mountain, that foundation. Remembering that this mountain has been here for centuries. It's been here long before you, and it will be here long after you. And it has withstood everything that time has given it. The storms, the wind, the rain. It bears scars that make it all the more interesting and beautiful. And this mountain yet rises above everything, standing firm and solid. And just like this mountain, you too can rise above everything. And all of the storms that you faced, the scars that you bear, only make you all the more interesting and beautiful. Remembering this connection to the mountain, you and the mountain is one. The energy that courses through you from head to toe. Bringing the awareness back to the breath, and maybe taking a long, deep inhale and exhale to bring awareness back into the body fully. Maybe wiggling your fingers or toes to wake up the body a bit. And when you're ready, you can start to blink your eyes open, noticing the light coming into the room. Remembering this connection that you have with the mountain. So welcome back, everyone. Let me know your reactions to that, your thoughts about that. Before we move into the question and answer period, there's one thing I forgot to mention when I was getting all choked up. I was thinking we started at 9:30, which is why I thought we were done at 11. And now we are at 11:30. So we'll stay on for anyone who has questions, of course. And for those who have to hop off, if you have questions you want to email Ashley or me, please do so. So the thing I forgot to mention actually is I just wanted to sort of put this, plant this flag out there, that there are experiences of trauma that the body holds that are very emotional and physical, and that are beyond, working with trauma is beyond this introductory course. But for anyone who's experiencing trauma, if there are additional resources or support that you would like to learn how to work with that and respond to that, please reach out to me, and I would be very honored to be able to support you in that. So we'll go ahead, I think. Oops. And we have the journals that Ashley will send out, which again, do with them what you will, what you want. And so, yeah, let's open it up to questions. I'm seeing some of the feedback from the meditation, very relaxed, almost asleep, very relaxed. Yeah, I really love that mountain meditation. It's maybe a little off book for mindfulness, but I think anytime that we can sort of more mindfully tap into our connection, not only to this mountain in our mind, but to the world around us, that certainly is mindfulness. So Ashley, were you seeing any questions that were popping up throughout? And again, if you want to come on to video to ask your question, please do so.
Yeah, thank you for doing that, man. I just realized like the tension that was in my jaw and like at the base of my skull, don't even realize it till you do something like that. I'm like, ow, no wonder I'm sore.
Yeah, no wonder, right? I'm gonna stop my share here so that I can come back fully on.
We had some chat earlier, and a lot of people were mentioning about the grief, just like the feelings of grief around COVID and everything that's happening. And I'm curious what we can do to apply mindfulness to kind of accept and let go of that grief, or how we can deal with that grief through mindfulness and meditation and body scans. And
yeah, I'm sighing because I just love the depth of that question. And absolutely, there's so much grief being experienced by people in this moment that we're all in. And this might be something that we can put a little more context to when we do the emotions session. And yet I don't want to punt it until the emotion session either. So let me give you some sort of initial thoughts on that. When we are working with any emotion, but especially grief and sadness and maybe despair, the first thing that I really want to invite and encourage people to do is, of course, to notice what's coming up for you, to notice that it's there, because sometimes that kind of despair or sadness or grief can kind of run like a computer program in the background, and we may not even notice it. So I invite you first to just become aware of it. And next, assuming that you are aware of it, as it seems the question implies, and that this is trying to think how to answer this without going too far down into the detail from the emotions session that we'll be working on, and compassion, because it kind of combines them both. But to as hard as it may sound, to allow it to be there, to try not to push it away or to cover it up with something else. We are awesome in this country at what Ashley and I know from our coaching program as silver lining things. We're awesome at saying, yeah, I'm depressed, but you know what? I gotta pull up my bootstraps today and go to work, and I gotta put on my game face, and I gotta take it up a notch for the kids or the colleagues or whatever. And all the while just like stuffing it down, or saying, it's, somebody's got it worse than me. I don't have any business being sad. I need to just suck it up. And that, for so many reasons, is such a disservice to yourself and to those around you. Because again, going back to the slide, your body will let you know when it's had enough. And those signs of grief will start showing up in other ways if we keep trying to push it down. And to acknowledge it and allow it to be there, knowing a couple of things. First, that grief, everything, every emotion, every thought is temporary. Everything is temporary and changing and impermanent. And so knowing that at some point grief will give way to something else, and that even in the moment, as we just did with this body scan, knowing that grief is not the whole picture. There can still be joy or happiness or even anger in the grief itself. So as we saw in the body scan, your head feels different than your toes. And there's room for all of those different sensations, and there's room for all of the emotions. And so we are never just one emotion. There's always different emotions available in the moment to us, and that will come eventually because everything is temporary. So trusting and knowing that the grief is temporary, and how and when it gives way, who knows? Who knows? But the second thing with that, with the allowing and the trusting and knowing that it's temporary, is I don't say this lightly at all. It is knowing that the grief is here for a purpose, and that as human beings, we are here to experience all of the emotions. Because without the grief, we wouldn't know joy and happiness. And without joy and happiness, we wouldn't know grief. And so to the extent you can, trusting in that impermanence, and that there's a purpose to it, and extending your self-compassion, which we will talk about in the very last session. Extending yourself some compassion, whether that's with a gesture. I do this a lot. I feel things in my chest and heart a lot. Extending yourself a hand to the chest or abdomen, or even to the cheek, or holding your hands together, giving yourself a hug, some gesture of compassion, or saying to yourself, it's okay, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. Just to bring some compassion to that grief. And of course, beyond that, from sort of outside the mindfulness standpoint, being aware of when you need to reach out and talk with someone, and knowing that we're not alone. We are never alone. So whether that's a friend or family member, or me or Ashley or somebody, your dog, being aware of when it's time to reach out and talk with someone. So that's a really, really rough cut justice on a very deep topic of grief. But we'll explore some more about the emotions in a later session.
Thank you. Just reading some of the feedback, some people were sharing some of the different sceneries of their mountains and running streams that made them have to run.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I somehow messed up I'm trying to get my view back. Where'd my chat go? I've lost all my icons for some reason. I don't know what happened to them. So I can't see the chat right now.
That's all right. Some involuntary emotions that came from that. Sometimes just stopping and really tapping in lets all those emotions flood in.
Yeah, there's my chat. It's hiding behind something.
Yeah, I would love to know if anybody else has some thoughts or questions or.
Yeah, and I know we're going over time, so I appreciate folks sticking on.
Jan, yes,
Yeah.
we're recording every session, so you will be able to watch it recorded. I'll send it out afterwards for next week. A question
Great.
about
Yeah,
how do
thanks.
we help grief work without crossing boundaries that you stated are necessary for personal maintenance?
Man, I love that question. Boundary issues are so rich with understanding and opportunity. So if I want to make sure I understand the question, are you referring to your own grief or someone else's grief?
A
When you
lot
say
of
the
us are
grief.
living with a lot of, okay, I'll say it from my perspective. I've noticed that myself and a lot of my students have multi-generational households. And sometimes you find, like, one of the things that I've opened class with whenever I've had new students, I open with the fact that you have to have that conversation about sharing Wi-Fi, sharing resources, sharing space, because you're having class, and so you need to have headphones to help drown out house sounds. You just do. And because after all, home is still happening although you're having class. It just does. Even right now, where I'm personally sitting right now in the home is very, very close to bedrooms and other personal spaces. So you may hear some personal action happening, FYI, not intentional. But because of the way the house is set up, you still have to have that kind of conversation. And sometimes that personal grief that a family is working through, say, like you said, some people are really having a hard time accepting that, oh, you're at home. How are you working at home? That's not real work. Real work happens when you leave the home. Or some people have problems with the fact that, how are you in school? Real school doesn't happen at home. Some people have problems with, how come you have to share Wi-Fi? You can't touch Wi-Fi. I don't see how that's a utility. These conversations do occur. I've had several discussions about how to approach it with a family member gently. And then after you have the gentle conversation, the back end version of it. And so then you end up having the grief conversation. This family member had a hard time. I had a hard time with this family member, or they cried with the whole thing about, why do I have to, we're so physically close. I'm not used to being with you all the time. And so thus we're talking about personal space and grief work and a lot of people see it as giving up their freedom. They're physically giving up their freedom because safer at home or quarantine or isolation or whichever version of it is we're all going through, they feel like they're giving up something or they lost something, which is hard. And that's why I asked about grief work without the personal boundary part of it. That's why I asked.
Yeah. I thank you so much for that question, Tracy. And there's so much that I'm hearing in that, and can only imagine the situations that your students are finding themselves in. And I want to let you know that it sounds like how you've been trying to show up for them and answer these questions and guide them through these situations for them is amazing. So I just want to acknowledge for you, I can imagine what a support you are to them, because it sounds like you're really trying to show up for them and give them that support, that compassion, some suggestions, advice, whatever it might be. So I just want to acknowledge how amazing it is that you're doing that. And secondly, obviously not knowing all of these students' situations or the family dynamics in each household, I'm wondering a number of things. The students who are coming to you, are there's it sounds like they're struggling with their own loss and grief and trying to navigate that in closed quarters with a lot of family members. so that maybe they don't have the time or space to go off in a corner and tend to their own grief. Is that kind of what I'm hearing in some of this?
Yes, I teach adults.
Oh, adults.
And
Okay. Okay.
right, I teach adults, and a lot of the adults that I teach are parents of traditional school age children. And traditional school age children, remember, they got shoved home first.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of parents had to negotiate online learning for the children first. And then some of them chose to do it for themselves at home
Mm-hmm.
as well. And
Yeah.
here we are again, having to have those conversations all over again. And yes, sometimes it's traumatic, sometimes it's not. And of course, I'll say it, traditional K through 12 learning layered on a whole new layer, added a whole new layer of it this year, this academic year. And so that was why I asked the question. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm dominating conversation. I apologize.
No apologies necessary. And I'd be happy to have Tracy, if you'd like, I'd be happy to have a one-on-one chat with you about this to maybe get some more context. But let me leave you with a couple of things. First of all, it sounds like, again, you have done an awesome job in terms of just hearing them and being a safe place for them to come and land and talk with them about this. And so just a couple of suggestions to take for whatever they're worth. When people are experiencing that kind of grief and loss, you hit the nail on the head with a loss. There's been so much loss over this year in so many ways, whether it's loss of our just normal lives, true loss of life, whatever it might be. When people come to you with that, one thing that is often just helpful is just to see and hear and acknowledge them and to normalize their grief. So just to say, as it sounds like you are, that you see them, you hear them, and what they're experiencing really is normal for this situation. Because sometimes people just need to know that they're normal, what they're going through is normal, and that they're not alone. And then beyond that, I might just suggest, sort of kind of poking around the edges of how they could possibly find some space for themselves during the day or for their family unit, because it's a collective consciousness, whether you're talking about in the home or in the world or in our state or in our town. We aren't just isolated people. And so we can continue to work hard on our own consciousness, and that certainly radiates out and has an impact on others. And also working in whatever groups that we're in, whether that's home or office, to sort of raise the collective consciousness. So if there's a way that these individuals in these homes, maybe they all need to come together as a family and just sit and talk, or sit in silence, or hold space for each other for 5 minutes a day, something to kind of start to shift the energy in the homes, as opposed to just, it sounds like they might just be going through their day trying to survive, just trying to get through the day on that autopilot, sort of in that mental control tower, trying to control everything around them. So can they as a family maybe come together somehow, whatever that might look like for them, to sort of hold that space for each other? Those are just a couple of thoughts, again, not knowing a lot about it. And I'm happy to talk to you, Tracy, for sure about this more in depth too.
Sure thing. I'll put my email address in the, wait a minute, make sure I put it in the right spot. So should I click on host to send my email address? Or
actually, you can, do you want to just send me an email? I'll put my email address in the chat. That might be easier.
Okay.
And if you miss anything, I can make sure to get you guys connected there.
Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Thank you for that, Tracy. This is where the rubber hits the road. Like, how, how does this stuff really help? And so this is the work to be done.
Thank you.
There was a question earlier about trauma. You were talking about trauma, and
there's another one.
Yeah. Thanks, Barbara.
Broke up, and she didn't hear exactly what you were saying, but you said if they wanted to reach out to you, you could connect them with some more resources more deeply with trauma. Is that what you said?
Yeah. Just because the true scope and attention that trauma deserves is beyond this introductory course. So if there is anyone who is struggling with trauma, whatever that might look like for you, or know somebody who is and would like some additional resources or to talk about that a little bit more, I'm happy to do that. So you can send me an email.
Awesome. Let me know if there's any last questions here. Feel free to unmute if you have a question you want to ask. No,
Yeah, thank you for everyone. And y'all can, I think the music people won out, so we might have a little pump up music next week, because mindfulness doesn't have to be boring. We can light a fire. We can raise the roof on mindfulness. Totally do that.
Are we gonna get some Kenny Rogers?
Oh yeah. Oh, for those of you who don't like, I'm a big Kenny Rogers fan. I'll try it. I will maybe make it a little more hip than Kenny Rogers, but yeah, we can totally do Kenny Rogers. Like, he's got some good songs about that kind of play into mindfulness for sure.
Kenny is
yeah. Yes, The Gambler, absolutely. I'll have to look at the YouTube video for what that one is. Kenny Rogers has a version of May the Circle Be Unbroken that brought me to tears. I love that song anyway, and his version of it is beautiful. But yeah, The Gambler, so much wisdom in The Gambler, as Ashley and I know. So much wisdom there. Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much. This was really a pleasure today, and so great to see so many people showing up for this and sticking around. So I'm sorry to keep you over, but really appreciate the feedback and the presence of all of you.